He represents the Country Acres Neighborhood Association. And then Wendy Carter, who lives in Forest Lakes, and she is a residential real estate with JP Wigand. So 3 great new members to replace our 3 outgoing great members. So I will have gifts for our outgoing members. They'll have to come to the April meeting, which should be in person, to receive their gifts. So be on the lookout for that. A couple of other things of note tomorrow. We will be voting on the District 3 open seat position. If you remember, there were 12 people that raised their hand that said they want to be considered. 9 qualified, and then 5 made it through the DAB interview process. And so we'll be voting tomorrow on one of those 5. The 5 finalists were all longtime community volunteers, great folks. It's a tough decision, and I imagine it won't be done on the first pass because they all have strengths that bring to it. So that'll be interesting tomorrow. For the not familiar with the proceedings, we can have up to 5 tie votes. And if there's still a stalemate, then it rolls to the next council meeting. If there are 5 tie votes again, it rolls to a 3rd council meeting. If there are still 5 tie votes at the end of that, then it'll be a coin flip. I hope to God we don't get that far, but that is the process. Harry Street Bridge, I know it's not in our district, but anybody that travels over by McLean Boulevard, it has reopened. So that's good news. It's finished. I think they still have some light work to do, but that part of the city, if you ever use that road, don't have to do the detour anymore. And then tomorrow also on the council agenda, we have and this is not in our district again, but it's a road that probably several of us that live west and go downtown use. McLean Boulevard from 13th to Central is currently a 4-lane, pretty windy road. And we want to slow that effort, those speeds down. So the proposal is to turn it into a 3-lane with bike lanes and 3-lane with a center turn lane, and then a pedestrian crossing at 9th Street. So we'll see the full plans on that tomorrow. There's no money in the budget for it, but primarily it would be striping. So it wouldn't be real expensive. But again, that is something that hopefully would slow speeds down along that road and make it safer for everyone. You may have also heard about a hearing that was held in Topeka last week regarding Century 2. There was a proposal to have the state legislature make a law that said if there were any structures over 80,000 square feet that were public buildings, that before any condemnation or tearing down or anything like that could be done to them, they had to be taken to a vote. Though there's only 2 city-owned facilities that large in the state. One is Century 2 and the other is the Convention Hall. So I'm sorry, Century 2 and the library. And Brandon Johnson, Vice Mayor, and I both testified. This wasn't a case of whether or not Century 2 should be saved or not. Our testimony is about this is home rule, and the cities should decide what to do with their facilities, not the state. As a council, we voted last year to have a policy that before anything does happen to Century 2, it would go out to the public for a vote. And so we had already said we were going to do a vote. We didn't need the state stepping in and overriding our authority as home rule. Again, we're not talking about the merits of the building, but the merits of the administrative function of the city council. Doesn't sound like they're going to take it up. It didn't pass the turnaround date, which was last week. So I think that was dead. But again, if you'd heard about it, it was just one of those things that was in the news. And then finally, you've probably heard me talk a lot about USS Wichita. This was a battle, not a battleship, but a cruiser ship that got built a couple of years ago. It finally got its first deployment after training and going through all of the intricacies of this new command ship. It now got deployed. It's going to be its first mission is in the Caribbean for counter narcotics. And so we posted something on our Facebook page. It's pretty cool to see it. It's one cool ship. It's got the USS Wichita flag flying from it, and it's pretty neat to see it finally out in the seas and doing its job. So a little hometown pride to share. So that's the main things I had tonight. If anybody had any questions for me.
Any questions for Brian? If not, I think we have 6 now.
Yeah, you have Jose now too, so we're good.
Yeah. So let's just do a motion to approve the agenda for today, March 1st. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll
So
make that
moved.
motion.
Second.
Okay, Troy and Dennis, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes from February 1st, 2021. Are there any changes, additions, deletions to be noted? Not hearing any.
I'll
Did
make a
someone
motion.
Did you make a motion, Troy?
I did.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second. This is Roman.
Roman, okay, there's been a motion and a second to approve the minutes from February 1st. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Well, good. Are there any off-agenda items anyone would like to bring up? No. Okay, we'll move right on to the staff reports and start with the fire department.
All right, not a lot to report for your district this month. We did have 11 fires in the city, 6 accidental, 1 incendiary, which is an arson fire, a couple undetermined, and a couple still under investigation. Total loss of structures, $285,500, and contents, $212,200, for a total of $497,700. Only thing that we're working on right now is a lot of times we use the time change to remind people not only to check your batteries and your detectors, but check the back, check the date. They go out of date, and then they'll go off, and then we'll come. And so that's just one thing to check on the time change, which I think is March 14th, if I remember right. So, but I don't think any of those fires were in your district. So it's been a quiet month in District 5.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you very much.
Yep.
We'll move on to, looks like Officer Johnson for police.
Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Can't.
Okay.
Yes.
Just a couple of notes. Officer Kimmery, I talked to her today, and she wanted me to let everyone know there's been several calls over at 11407 West 21st Street, which is a residence care facility. She was working directly with the director. They've been having several issues with a client there that has some mental disabilities and doing some not so good things in the neighborhood. So she's working with them directly to try to take care of that issue and resolve it, because we've gotten several calls in the last 2 or 3 weeks, she said. The other thing of big concern is next Thursday, which is the 11th, from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., we're going to do our Second Chance Thursdays. And what that is, if you guys could put it out for us, that anyone with any driving infractions, like speeding, signals, that their license is suspended, they are more than welcome to come to our community policing building, which is at 5803 West Central. And to come in, we'll run their license. And what we'll do at that point, we'll issue them a new court date. They will not go to jail. And they get a second chance to get their license back so they can pursue with their life and help out the community. Last but not least, once again, I know we all have heard it, it's the catalytic converters. Just be mindful of whoever owns businesses and or around the residents, if they leave their vehicles outside, leave on extra lights, listen for anything. It only takes a minute to a minute and a half to saw that catalytic converter off, causes a lot of damage. We're doing everything we can possible, still trying to identify and arrest. but we're in a crossroads because we need the state backing to get more legislation so we can keep these guys in jail when we do catch them. And that's all I have tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Officer Johnson? No, thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. See you at the Y.
Okay, yeah, see you there. Okay. Library, Tracy? Oh, now we can see you.
I started talking and I didn't have my mute off or yeah, so I apologize. So hi everyone, as always, I am thrilled to be at the meeting. I have really good news today. We are actually going back to in-building services on Monday, March 8th. So I'm incredibly excited about that, as I know our customers are and everyone else is. It is going to be different than it typically is. We are going with a grab and go philosophy. I want to kind of like give you an idea of the services that we are going to be offering. Basically, what's going to happen is customers will be able to browse our shelves, which they are going to be incredibly excited about because they've been wanting it for a while. Our public computers will be available. They're going to be socially distanced as they were prior to our closure. People will be able to use our print copy and fax services. We will have Wi-Fi service available, and we will have tables throughout the library that are socially distanced so that people can actually make use of that service. If customers don't want to go through a staff station for checkout, we will have our self-check stations. Now, there are some individuals who are still probably not going to feel comfortable physically coming into our building. So we're going to continue our curbside service and also our drive-through service. So we've got those capabilities. We will continue to offer our virtual programs through Zoom and not do in-building programs at this time. We have been doing test proctoring, I believe, remotely, and we're going to continue with that format. It's remote and virtual is what it is. We are going to offer book librarian sessions at our advanced library only, and that is actually by appointment. Prior to COVID, we did them at all of our locations, but we have dedicated staff at our advanced learning library and more space, so we're only going to do those there. Our research pavilion at the Advanced Learning Library is going to be accessible by appointment only. It's going to be available Monday through, I believe it's Friday. And I don't have that here, Monday through Friday, and then reduced hours on Saturday, but not on Sunday. The research pavilion will not be available by appointment on Sunday. Now, there are some services, unfortunately, that aren't quite ready to be instituted yet, but we will be continuing to monitor them and determine when it is best to add them in. And those are our collaboration rooms at our advanced learning library won't be open quite yet, and our meeting rooms at all of our libraries won't be open quite yet. Also, our AV studio at the Advanced Learning Library isn't going to be open quite yet. We will not be doing room rentals, book donations. We will actually remove our lounging furniture. So people, it's that whole grab and go thing where you come in and you get what you need and you do the tasks that you need and you don't just sit and read, etc. Our Friends of the Library Used Bookstore will not be open quite yet, and our Reverie Coffee Roasters at the Advanced Learning Library is not going to be open quite yet. So that's really kind of what we're doing, and we are so excited. March 8th is going to be a fabulous day. So we're very, very eager for that change to take place. Does anybody have any questions about that before I give a couple of brief announcements of some other things?
I'll just tell you, I've heard from several citizens, neighbors that are really looking forward to it. So it's good call, good timing. We also open up City Hall tomorrow for attendance at our council meetings. So still social distancing, still masks, but you're starting to see the city open up in various places. And certainly the library is one that's been asked for some time. So
yes,
good to hear.
We're glad to be opening. Okay, does anybody have any other statements or questions regarding our plan to reopen on the 8th? Okay, so the other few things that I wanted to announce, the library's doing a new podcast and it's called Read, Return, Repeat. It is actually, It's a way to promote our hashtag Read ICT program, which is in cooperation with the Wichita Eagle. And that's where we try and get people to read 12 books in 12 months from 12 different categories, because we're all about the reading, as we should be. What's cool about the podcast is that they're going to do in-depth literary interviews with special guests, and then they'll also offer reading recommendations for that hashtag Read ICT program. Another thing that I want to mention is some virtual programming that's actually happening at the library. You can go to our website at wichitalibrary.org and go to our events section to see all of the programs that we're offering virtually. But there were 4 that I wanted to just briefly mention. One is called Public Art Engaging Your Community. That is on Saturday, March 20th at 10:30. And that is about how public art can actually transform neighborhoods and business districts with a heightened sense of community identity and engagement with the arts. We have the Wichita Genealogical Society, who's doing the second part of a genealogy program on DNA. It's DNA for Genealogy Clusters. That's on Saturday, March 20th from 1 to 3 p.m. Third program I want to mention is Tuesday Topics, Public Health in Sedgwick County. That is at noon on Tuesday, March 23rd. And it is about like presenting views on how public health might be best served in a more coordinated fashion. That is actually sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Wichita Metro. And the final program that I want to mention is actually a series, and it's one that we've been doing for years. It's the Spring Gardening Series. It's actually presented in cooperation with the K-State Research and Extension Sedgwick County Master Gardeners Program, which is incredibly hard to say. And that begins March 25th, runs for 5 weeks on Thursday evenings from 6 to 7:30. All of those programs are online via Zoom. All of them require registration. What happens is when you register for them, you are sent an email, I believe, the day before with the Zoom information, and then the hour before the program is actually supposed to start. So you've got 2 instances to get that link so that you can connect easily. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any library questions? Yes.
Does this count as a virtual library event?
I wouldn't say so, Brian. That was a good
I'm
try.
only 5 away from a blackout.
You're doing so good. And I'm so glad that you mentioned it. I'm so proud of you. You like are amazing. But hopefully, like people are following your fabulous lead, because you are the only one that I've heard about who's like gotten bingos and almost blackouts. So this is just a reminder to all of you, fabulous prizes, exciting opportunities. Okay, so please participate. Anything else?
Well, Tracy, that reminds me, I was going to ask about the bingo and just make sure, like, if there's a deadline, or are we all working towards, having all these done by a certain date? Because I'm excited to find out what these fabulous prizes are.
Well, the fabulous prizes, Roman, are if you get like an individual, like if you get a bingo, you're going to get a fabulous medal. If you get an individual blackout, you are going to get like a trophy, and you're going to get a book donated in your honor by me to the library. Okay, you get to pick what the book is. Now, the other thing is, because Brian has been very creative before in like how you guys can participate in these challenges I set forth. I said that you could participate as a district advisory board, and you could collectively get a blackout. And if you collectively get a blackout, then what I will do is I will donate a book in your honor to the Wichita Public Library on teamwork, because it will be an excellent demonstration of teamwork. But what I am going to say is Brian can't carry you, okay? Brian has almost gotten blackout, and this is not acceptable. This is not what I'm going for.
Well,
Okay.
I've got quite a few. I think Brian might have me beat, but I'm working on it.
I believe in you, Roman, and I look
All right.
forward to you achieving it. And then I'm going to donate a book in your honor to the library.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Hey, Tracy, this is Dennis. I was just curious if there's any update or status on director recruitment for the library, or where that's
That
headed.
is an excellent question. I unfortunately do not have any information to share on that, but that is an excellent question.
Sure, I'll follow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Dennis, what I can do is I can actually ask the interim director, Christy Dowell, if she has any information that we can share. And then what I can do is I can email you regarding that. Would that work?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I was just
Awesome.
curious.
I'm going to write it down because otherwise it's not happening.
I don't have any
Okay.
info either, so.
Okay. And I figured, Brian, you would have some information, but okay.
I know what the plan is. I just don't know where we're at in the
In the
plan.
plan. Okay. Well, I'm going to see what I can find out for you, Dennis. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Okay, March 8th. Fabulous day. Super exciting. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Trace.
Okay, unmute there. Thank you, Tracy. I got so excited about the library opening, I skipped over Parks and Rec. Dave?
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if my information is going to be as exciting as Tracy's, but I'll share what I have, all right?
Okay.
As far as the world of park maintenance and forestry work, we were dealing with all the snow and ice, a week or so ago, and it really didn't affect the forestry operations too much, other than it was just almost too cold to get out there and work. We got done as much as we could. We're close to getting the mowing season going. It's probably not too far off, the end of March here. 1st of April, we'll be starting to do our mowing operations again. As far as the recreation side of things, the new Evolve catalog is getting ready to come out. That'll have all the recreation classes, library classes, city arts classes, and so forth. So I know the recreation side has a lot of good classes that we're offering. We're getting more people to attend our classes, so that's pretty exciting. Our junior football program that we were trying to get to go here this spring didn't make it. It just doesn't seem like the time of year to be playing football. Kids are playing soccer and baseball and finishing up basketball. So, but we have joined with the NFL, and we're going to run their NFL flag football program for kids in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, I believe is the age group. So we're pretty excited about that. We're getting some kids signed up for that program. That's about all I have to report on. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. We're going to be talking about our athletic court system capital improvement program here in a little bit as well.
Okay.
David, I was going to sign my 13-year-old son up for football. So we're no longer doing that this season, correct?
That's correct. We've
Okay.
decided to go ahead and cancel the tackle football program and wait for the fall.
Dang.
I know. But hopefully, what he'll be, an 8th grader?
Next year, he'll be an 8th grader.
So we should have our regular program back in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And if you need help, I don't know if he already has a team, but Mickey or Daniel can help directing to an organization that is in his neighborhood, where, out west, to get joined up with the team. So.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
He'll retain an additional year of eligibility too, won't he?
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Dave? Okay, thank you, Dave. Move on to Public Works and Utilities.
Actually, I think we don't have a report from them tonight. We're
Okay.
going to try to go to quarterly from Public Works, just because there hasn't been enough new things happen over the course of month to month. Thought I'd shorten our meetings a little bit and avoid just being repetitive. The main things I think is you probably all know that the stoplight is in at 37th and Tyler. It's functioning now. And then the one for Zoo and Hoover should be coming, I'm going to knock on wood and hopefully say next month. As we talked last week when we were doing the zoo tour, the biggest challenge there is the railroad and working with the K&O rail line on getting that timing done right. But everything else is just kind of the same. No big construction projects in our district. And we're just kind of in that seasonal lull. So kind of give them a break tonight. Unless you have something, Public Works, that you wanted us to feed back to them.
You might, a couple months ago, I mentioned about the damage to the barrier at Airport Road in Kellogg.
And they did figure that out. It is our responsibility and they're supposed to be fixing it.
Okay,
So I haven't been by there recently, but Gary did
Yeah,
follow up with me and told me that that particular project there, that damage that you're talking about is our responsibility, and they were going to fix that. So
yeah, okay. Sounds good. Well, I guess we could just move, yeah, I guess we have to receive and file the staff reports.
Yep.
So can I have a motion to receive and file the staff reports?
So moved.
Second.
Dennis moved it, Roman seconded it. Okay, been a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I guess we can go right back to Dave and athletic court inventory and proposed CIP plan program.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, when we were going through that whole issue with West Meadows tennis courts over there, and visiting with Brian come up with the idea, suggest the idea that we do an athletic court master plan, and which had a lot of merit, but we kind of felt like we were kind of already headed down that road because we were working on creating this decision-making tool, and that we realized from going through the process with West Meadows that we probably needed to get more community engagement. So we've created two things. We are now going, like tonight, we are presenting our athletic court capital improvement program at each of the DABs this month. And so we're wanting to get public input that way. We've also gone about even using some monkey surveys to get public input to find out what people would like to see, what kind of courts do they really want to have back in their parks, and or one of our recommendations is to remove some of these courts that are in such bad shape and not replace them. So we've got a little slideshow presentation here that I think Corey's going to pull up. And before we get going on that, I just want to make sure that, Brian, I hope we're going the right direction in trying to get more information on these athletic courts, because you know there's only $227,000 set aside each year, and that doesn't go very far. And so we have this whole list of courts that need repaired and need fixed. Some of them don't. They're going to last a while longer. So we're jumping into this and trying to head it in the right direction. So our decision-making tool that we created, we now go out and we evaluate every court that based on the condition of it, the hazards, the complaints that we've been getting from the community. We look at the different districts to make sure that we're trying to make improvements in all 6 districts so that we have so it's I can't say that word, equitable between the districts. So Corey, if you can go to the second slide there. So we have a total of 177 courts in all, and 77 tennis courts right now. 16 of them are down at the Riverside Tennis Center. We've got 40 basketball courts, multi-use courts. Some of them aren't full size. We got 38 sand volleyball courts. 32 of those are down at Watson Park. The sand volleyball out in the parks aren't all that popular, and they don't get used that much anymore. 19 outdoor pickleball courts. We've made some pretty good strides in that, and right now we probably can't put enough of those in. Everybody's wanting some in their part of the city so that they don't have to drive, but so we're working on that. We're trying to make clusters of pickleball courts, not where we just have 1 or 2 at a park. There really are 3 tetherball courts. I used to be the tetherball champion of Utica, Kansas back in the day. I still claim that. So we do have a few of those. We actually have futsal courts now. That's basically speed soccer, played outdoors. 2 tennis practice walls and a shuffleboard court over there in College Hill Park. So, and we do have some people that go over there and play. So you can switch to the next slide, Corey. Like I said, we have 225,000 annually from 2021 through 2030. So that's about a total of 2.25 million. If you average that out though, it's only like 17,000 per court. And that really doesn't do any kind of repair except for maybe what we did to West Millbrook, West Meadows, where we just patched and put an overlay on it. So, and not all of our courts need work. So, but there are quite a few of them, like we showed previously, that are in pretty bad shape. So, next one, Corey. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
So a sample of what it costs to do courts, and the best kind of court is to do a post-tension concrete court that's got reinforcement in it. So like that futsal court there that we've been putting in, it runs about $160,000. A post-tension single court or a double pickleball court runs about $75K. Post-tension basketball, $70K. You can read those there. Concrete slab, if it's not post-tension, still runs about $60K. The job that we did over there at West Meadows Park, just doing the crack fill and putting a nice painted surface, ran about $15,000. So that's pretty expensive in itself. So you can go to the next court or slide. I might mention too, can you back up, Corey? That picture right there is a picture of a post-tension reinforced concrete slabs. That's the futsal basketball court going in out there at Harrison Park. So you can kind of see it's pretty involved. They got those big old cranes pumping that concrete out there. You got to get all that reinforcement in place. So that's a good example of a post-tension reinforced concrete court right there. So now we can move ahead. So in our current plans to make repairs, if you start talking about adding lighting to any of these courts systems, they go up considerably. 2-court system with lights could be another $170,000 on it. So what we're proposing right now is just trying to get a few courts in better shape, not worrying about lighting at these locations. We do want to make sure at some point get some lighting up at Edgemore where the pickleball courts are. So lighting really is a nice thing, but it's very expensive to do. Like you can see down there, 40 to 50 costs per court for quality lighting system. Striker lighting out there at the Striker complex was 1.5 million to light up those fields. So lighting is nice, but it comes at a high cost. Next one, Corey. So the recent athletic courts, I mentioned Harrison Park out there. We also put in a basketball court. We're kind of trying to take care of one park and just get a park completely done. When it comes to these athletic courts, Sherwood Glen, we're putting in a little half-size basketball court up there with some pickleball striping that people can bring in their portable nets and still play pickleball. Evergreen Tennis Court was modified to a futsal court. West Meadows Park, like we already know, we went in and did the patch and fix on that court. So those were our 2020 and the end of 2019 projects that we've been doing. So the current athletic court projects, let me back up. I actually said that wrong. that previous slide was 2019 funding. The slide that we're getting ready to look at here is the 2020, and we put most of our funding towards the Riverside Tennis Center. So you can go back to that other slide, Corey. And we have 13 courts replaced and resurfaced. 3 additional tennis courts were added. 6 new pickleball courts, additional lighting, and the plaza area was improved. Surfacing and striping will come here in the spring. So it was about a 1.5 million CIP funding with also a $400,000 grant that we got from the Mo Conley Foundation. So that's going to really finish off the Riverside Tennis Center, and we'll have plenty of room for pickleball. We'll be able to run lots of regional type tennis tournaments. So that's going to make that facility really nice. We have the indoor courts over there that we can run tennis all year long. So it's going to be in really good shape. Under design, we're working on the Osage Park double tennis system. It's going to be replaced with a single tennis and 2 pickleball courts. What we did there, we sent out one of those monkey surveys and asked the neighborhood what they would like to see. And they really didn't want basketball because there already is another basketball court in that park. And so they went with 2 pickleball and a tennis court. So then there are 2 other parks, Spruce Park and Pyatt Park, that those basketball courts are in horrible condition. And we plan on taking those out and replacing those. We had talked in District 4 about going down to Southview and just removing those tennis courts, and the public really didn't respond either way. And so when funding, we kind of pushed that out a little bit. We're going to try to bring that back in and just simply take those courts out and not replace them. So you can go to the next slide, Corey. So, our court condition inventory, our decision-making tool, you can see some pictures there, what the courts kind of look like. Size classification of the park per our pros plan, the court material, whether it's asphalt or concrete, court cracking, number of cracks, crack size and severity, condition of the nets and the posts, condition of the marking and the striping, complaints from park patrons, requests for new and other courts. So these are the things that we're looking at now to make sure that we're making good decisions of what to do with our athletic courts. You can go to the next slide, Corey. So additional assessment criteria, we want to engage the community as much as we can. Going to DABs like what we're doing tonight. City Council presentation. I think Larry Hooper will be presenting this same presentation to the City Council here May 16th, or I think that's the date. So we'll be going to the City Council. Free play area parks versus programmable. So we want to keep a balance. We have the Riverside Tennis Center down there that you have to pay a fee to play, but we also want plenty of courts out in our parks that are free for anybody to go play on. So we got to look at a balance and how we keep that balanced up. Possible reduction of athletic courts in our system that really doesn't make any sense for them to be at a court or at a certain park. We had directors in the past that thought there should be 1 rec center, 1 swimming pool, 2 tennis courts, a ball diamond, and a playground in every park. And a lot of our parks are that way, and that might not always be the way it should be these days. So, and everything was pushed clear to the middle of the parks. And so you always have this walking distance, and so we're kind of looking at that some more. So, Corey, you can go to the next one. I think that might be it. So the top 10 courts, the worst condition, our basketball courts, you can see there which one we feel are the worst courts in the system. There's a couple of sets of tennis courts that we really need to get out there at Country Acres, which is in District 5 there. And I think we're talking about maybe just going back with the dog park in that park instead of an athletic court. That makes complete sense. You know, we give something back to the community if we're taking something away. So you can go to the next slide, Corey. So the proposed 2020 program, we're going to focus on replacing the 2 asphalt basketball courts. Funding, we should be able to accommodate those 3 that are listed there, Boston, Harvest, and Plainview. We're going to assess Country Acres and Sycamore's athletic courts a little bit more and decide what to do with those. The courts at Sycamore are really not used that much, and they're in really bad shape. And so we're still leaning towards just taking those out and putting that back into green space. You can go to the next slide, Corey. Expansion of programmable courts. Additional funding will be requested in future CIP for tournament quality. If you really want to get into the big regional tournaments like the Missouri Valley tournaments, the Riverside Tennis Center really won't accommodate those kind of tournaments. And so we do have all these other satellite tournaments or courts like at Edgemore, at McAdams, that if we keep those in good enough condition, they can be used for helping to attract some of these bigger tournaments to our city. And we also then we'll be able to create more revenue. Park and Recreation is considered a revenue producing department. So the tennis center and having programmable courts that we can make some revenue off of is something that we have to do as a department. Next slide. And so here you can see our mascots with the Wushock there was getting ready to play a little soccer over at one of the futsal courts there in Fairmont Park. And those courts are really used quite a bit over there. It's pretty cool. We made one of them a tennis court, but with the ability to take the net out. And it didn't take long, and people requested that the net got pulled, and we have 2 futsal courts over there now. So it's pretty cool to watch them play. It's a pretty fast game. So any questions on any of that? I know I went through that pretty fast, but we're pretty excited. We have a plan in place. I think is what Ryan wanted us to have, to have more of a plan, get the information out to the public, make sure we get their input and not get caught up in surprises. And when the community says, that's not what we want, and have the one issue that we have is when we get into this, we get pretty locked into a plan, and it's hard to be flexible.
Yeah, I really appreciate the deeper dive. One of the things I hear constantly from our neighbors is take better care of the things that we have. And they, some of these neighborhood parks and their facilities, they really treat them as their own. And so when something like West Meadows Park happened, and then they didn't feel like they were really consulted or that it was just going to be taken away, hurt quite a bit. And I appreciate David's work on this to, maybe it's a temporary patch. We don't know how long it's going to last, but taking better care of our facilities and making them usable is what we hear constantly. And, we got to stretch a buck as best as we can. And with 177 courts, there's just not enough money to go around. So having a very thought out plan about how we assess our inventory, how we engage our neighbors, looking at that long-term picture is really what I was hoping for. So I appreciate that, David.
Yep.
And again, I think as we go through these, it won't be surprises for our neighbors anymore. And we can get a better idea of what should be in there rather than just going back in with what we had. We've heard that from some folks, and you're seeing the results of it. So overall, I think it's pretty good. Of course, we're not going to be able to fix it all at once, but at least it's a better start.
Yeah, we just got to create the list and work at it. And in 10 years, all of a sudden, we'll have a lot of courts in better shape.
Yep.
Mm. David, I've got another quick question too. Is there sign up for these courts, or do you have, how does that work? Is it first come, first serve?
At most courts, yes. The courts other than Riverside are all first come, first served. And we have some rural signs, and we ask people to be courteous, and if there are other people waiting to play, to after an hour, give the courts up and let others play. But for the most part, Buffalo Park has some good courts. Sunset Park has courts. We've got the pickleball courts over here on Seneca and now at Riverside. So yes, all the unprogrammed courts are first come, first serve.
Okay.
And there are still tennis courts out there that have lights that you can play in the evening. Sunset, Buffalo Park, of course, Sedgwick County Park has some tennis courts that are lighted. So there is still a way of going and playing tennis at night and not traveling too far from your house.
Yeah, my girls and I go over to Buffalo Park, which is right down the street from us, and they've got, I mean, the lights there are fabulous, but we also, the girls also go through the tennis center too. So I love the idea that we're going to be expanding on that complex, and the idea that we get to attract some outside the city talent and revenue. I think that's super exciting. So is this what's the process for this, Brian? Does it need to get approved? Is this already approved?
No, as David said, one of the other park staff, Larry Hootmer, is going to present at an upcoming council meeting. Other DABs are hearing this presentation tonight.
Okay.
And at future DAB meetings. I think you're going to make the rounds to all of them. Again, we're looking for feedback. We're looking for any other things that we might be missing or other needs, so forth. But really just starting to get a more formal program with notification so that it doesn't surprise neighbors like it happened with West Meadows and Sycamore. Not that staff wasn't visiting with them, but just trying to be more exhaustive with our outreach.
Well, I appreciate you guys letting me present that. And if there's any other questions, feel free to email me. We'll get the answer for you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. I know those pickleball courts at Seneca are used a lot.
Oh my goodness, can you believe that?
No.
There's like every Saturday and Sunday morning, there's like 30 or 40 people there just waiting to play.
Well,
So-
I go to TJ's during the week and eating a juicy hamburger, and they're playing pickleball.
You can hear that noise, ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
You bet.
We appreciate it. Okay, with that, we'll move to Matt Williams and the zoning case. Matt?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, this is Matt Williams, an associate planner in the planning department. And I think Corey is going to bring up this zone change.
Matt, I'm making you co-host. That way you have the ability to share your screen.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen right now.
Yep, we can.
Okay, so this is zone change 2021, number 7. This is a single family residential zoned property right now that owner is planning on splitting it into 2 pieces. There's an existing home on the southern half, and then the northern half is vacant, and they are requesting the rezoning of that northern half to TF3, which would allow them to build a duplex on it. As you can see, this is at 5820 West St. Louis. It's southwest of West Central and I-235. So most residents in this neighborhood are zoned single family. You can see the yellow there is other 2-family zoned properties. So there's a couple, one just to the block west and then another one up to the north. And then these over here on the other side of I-235. So that's not really too close. But you can see that there is some two-family zoning already in the neighborhood. This is inside the established central area, and the Places for People plan recommends, residential as being appropriate for this area. It also recommends allowing duplexes to be more thoroughly entwined with the rest of the city. There are some recommendations from the Places for People plan about the design of duplexes. And as we've done with most of the duplex zoning cases this year, we're recommending a protective overlay that apply to this property that requires the duplex that's built there to follow some design guidelines. Some of those design guidelines are written here in the staff report. So, the goal of this is to make duplexes fit into the neighborhood and not stick out so much. So one thing is the garage face shall occupy no more than 50% of the ground level facade facing the street. So this is hopefully to avoid duplexes that are snout houses with a giant garage on the front and then a small door on the side. There's a few other things here that aren't too big. One important thing about this case is that this currently is on just one lot. So if you look at this lot here, the black outline is the portion with the rezoning, but really there's just one single lot that takes up that whole piece. And as I said, there's a single family home on there. So as a condition of this approval, we're going to require that the property owner split the lot so that we don't have two homes on one lot, because that wouldn't go with the single family zoning or the duplex zoning that's going to be on there. So staff is recommending approval of this case. So I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Matt?
No protests have been filed yet, Matt?
No protests, and I haven't, that would be after the planning commission meeting. And I believe we're here really early. Planning commission isn't until March 18th. And I think the notification letters on this case just went out, so I haven't even heard anything back on this yet.
So I noticed when I type in 5820 West St. Louis on Google, it takes me to an address on the east side of 235 and not this house or not this plot. So might want to double check that.
I think it's right. I think I kind of remember. I just was there today.
So I also looked it up in Google, and mine is on the west side of 235, but I wonder if it's just because of the division of that lot. You mentioned that it's going to be split into two lots, correct?
Yeah, and this is the address for the existing home that's already there. That's on the southern half of the lot.
Okay.
And when I pull it up in my Maps app on my phone, it comes up as 5820 West St. Louis Avenue.
Right.
And it's on the west side of I-235, but Councilmember Fry, I remember looking that up the other day, and it was kind of weird. It popped up in two locations.
Yeah, it comes up as St. Louis Street and West Street, the corner. When you type in 5820 West St. Louis Avenue, it takes you to a pinpoint at West St. Louis Street and Northwest Street. So just wanted to, in terms of notification and making sure people know where we're talking about, if they're looking it up later, I don't want them to be upset.
Yeah, that is odd. I'll look into that and see what's going on there. But I believe this is the correct address.
Sometimes Google Maps is not correct too.
Yeah, I'll blame them in this situation.
Yeah.
So that existing house at 5820 will stay there in that separate lot, and this will be a new lot created to the north.
Yeah. Correct.
Okay. With access from St. Louis, which is an east-west running street, or access from Eisenhower with a north-south running street?
It would be access to Eisenhower.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt? If not, do you want us to vote on it? Yeah, okay. Someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, hey, JV, I'd make a motion to approve.
Okay, Dennis made a motion to approve. Is there a second?
And that's approving the staff report, staff
Yeah, the
recommendation.
staff recommendation,
Recommendations.
sorry. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, Roman seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, places for people implementation. Mary Hunt.
Okay, so this is Matt again. We are giving these presentations at multiple DABs tonight, and Mary is at District 1 right now. So I'm going to be starting this presentation off for her, and hopefully she'll jump in at some point and finish it up because she does have a little bit more information on this. Let's see here. Okay, so if everybody can see my screen, I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so we in the planning department are happy to share updates on the Places for People plan. Tonight I have updates on the zoning and the land bank initiatives. And we're excited to get your thoughts on these proposals. I'll hopefully leave it, definitely leave a time at the end of this presentation where we can take comments and get questions, but unless there's a big question, I'll try to get through all of this. Let's see. If you want to learn more about this, you can also go to wichita.gov/placesforpeople. And we have a spot on that website where you can put your email address in and get future updates as well. So first here, we're going to look at the public engagement process. Following a city council workshop earlier this year, the planning has been refining our approach on Places for People, and we've started to take these proposals out for public comment. So earlier in February, we had 2 Facebook town halls. One covered land bank and one covered zoning. And in the spring, we hope to be taking these proposals to Planning Commission and then ultimately the City Council and the County Commission for final approval. All along the way, and especially tonight during the DAB meetings, we want to take in public feedback, answer your questions, and we hope to refine these proposals as we move along. So nothing is set in stone. We can change things as we go if people are not happy with what they're seeing. So we have been taking public comment on the different social medias for the city. You can also email us or give us a phone call if you have any more specific comments that you want to share. And I can flash this at the end of the presentation as well. So tonight, our goal is to share information about the Places for People proposals and the process that we're going through, and then get your input questions. I'll start with a little bit of background about how we got here, and then go into the different implementation steps, and then talk about where we're going to go from here. So the Places for People plan really came out of the comprehensive plan, which is called the Community Investments Plan in Wichita and Sedgwick County. A lot of public feedback went into the creation of the Community Investments Plan. There was a citizen steering committee. There were over 50 meetings and events that took place. This is the big plan that the city does, and city and the county as partners, we do about every 10 or 15 years. And, it's a big citywide initiative to get kind of an idea of where we're at and where we want to go. We had a survey that was conducted at the time, and we got more than 4,000 responses. So my point here is that a lot of input and time went into the creation of the Community Investments Plan. And the Community Investment Plan really brought into, really focuses on infrastructure and recommends an urban infill strategy that focused on the established central area of Wichita, or the core of Wichita. And kind of the idea is that infrastructure is costing more and more money. Wichita keeps expanding further and further out. And, you know, we're living in smaller household sizes on larger lots. And so we're expanding the infrastructure when really we have a core of the city that has all of our infrastructure already existing and in place. And it would cost less money and be more efficient for the city if we could at least, you know, use the space and kind of redevelop some of the areas of Wichita that are experiencing decline. So the plan brought into focus some major trends that our community was going through, and really places all over the country. These included an era of fiscal restraint. You know, revenue is tight and expenses are going to be tight. Household sizes are becoming more diverse and smaller, and also an aging population. There's a preference for more transportation options. And then, of course, in Wichita, we know that there's a huge national and international competition for talent. So we're trying to recruit talent and be a place where people want to live. The urban infill strategy looked to alleviate some of these infrastructure constraints while also taking into account those trends that our community was seeing. The urban infill plan was sought to help reverse decline in our core neighborhoods, utilize existing infrastructure rather than expanding it, and then improve the quality of life in areas that we're seeing a decline. So the plan focused on the established central area, or the core of our city, which is Ridge Road on the west side to Rock Road on the east side, and 29th Street on the north and to 31st Street on the south. And really we chose this area because that's kind of the city, that's the extent of the city, I believe by the 1960s, which is when the development pattern really started to change. And so a lot of this older core part of town has a specific style of development that's different from the suburbs today. And a lot of the zoning code that's put in place is more, I would say it works better for the suburbs than it does the core of the city. For example, you know, a lot of the small lot developments in the core of town, if those parcels of land were redeveloped today, they wouldn't be able to be redeveloped exactly how they are today because there's different setback rules, different things like that. So now on to our third plan, and so much history, but the Wichita Places for People plan came out of that urban infill plan. And this was just, how are we going to tackle that urban infill that we think is important? And so the Wichita Places for People plan envisions strong neighborhoods, strong community centers, getting a strong economy. And we're going to do that by infill development, walkable design, new housing options, and multimodal transportation. So the Places for People plan also had tons of community input. There was an advisory committee that met for more than a couple of years, that more than 55 public meetings, surveys, town halls, you know, we got lots of responses. So we really feel like this was an accurate representation of what the city was looking for related to urban infill. And so the urban infill, or the Places for People plan, has three main focuses. There's zoning recommendations, land bank recommendations, and strategic investment strategy recommendations. Tonight, I'm only going to be talking about the zoning and the land bank. Okay, so for zoning. So for those who might need a refresher on the basics of zoning, zoning regulates the land uses and incorporates certain rights to the landowner. And a zoning change can occur when a property owner asks for a zone change and the governing body agrees to it. Why zoning is important for the urban infill plan is because through zoning, we can enhance walkability, we can enhance design, scale of developments, we can increase housing choices and opportunities for people. There's that difference with the development patterns pre and post 1960 that I mentioned, and we can hopefully allow for the efficient use of infrastructure and the community resources that we already have. So the zoning portion of this plan has several draft proposals related to these different topics. Say is that these are only proposals right now, and they are only applying to the established central area. So none of this really applies to anything outside of that red line. They're not mandatory. If they were to be put in place, they're not mandatory, but they offer kind of an alternative route that developers can go down. They do require design standards to reflect the neighborhood character of the area, and they offer a shorter approval process. For example, from 75 days to 21 days. So I think it's important to note at this point that this plan is not about just helping developers get new projects done and for people to throw on rental properties. This was a long-term plan put in place to help redevelop the central part of the city, knowing that a lot of those lots are really hard to develop on. Maybe the standards are different because it's such a small lot and it's hard to build there. Maybe the land is hard to come by, lots of different things. And so we're trying to figure out how can we get developers interested in redeveloping this area when it's so difficult. So in a shorter approval process really can help a developer and make a project work when in the past maybe it wouldn't work. So the first topic is accessory apartments. You might know these as like a granny flat or an accessory suite. Separate structures from your main house in the rear of the property. They can be a separate structure by themselves, like in the top picture, or maybe it's just an apartment above a detached garage. What's important about these is they share utilities with the main home. So that, it makes it more difficult to rent these out or to sell them because the utilities have to be through the main home. So it's a little different in that aspect. Accessory apartments are really nice because they can increase the density of an area. They can provide additional housing options for people. People apply for these permits all the time because they have maybe an aging parent that they want to be able to keep close by, but in a separate, home on their same property. But this can make the land really efficient and provide some new places for people to live. Here's just some examples. You can see how they can really be designed to fit in with the neighborhood and look like they've been there forever and not stick out. So our recommendation is that through a special process, if your accessory apartment is architecturally styled to match the main building on the property, so the main home, and the max square footage is up to 75% of the main home, and then the max height is 60% of the zoning district. So we're putting these limits on how big it can be and what the design can be. But if you follow those things, then you'll be approved for that administrative permit. And I can go through kind of how we're thinking about approving these in just a few minutes. But accessory apartments are being looked into all over the country, including in Kansas and Overland Park and Manhattan and Olathe. Does anybody have any questions on the accessory apartment aspect of this?
Hey,
Okay.
Matt, this is Dennis. That's not too dissimilar, right? We have some developers on the outskirts of towns on new developments that are seeking sort of casitas, right? Are we talking about sort of one for one type, sort of similar conceptually?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I know a few of the neighborhoods around town are doing that right now. Yeah, so those neighborhoods have applied to kind of make that okay for their whole neighborhood.
Right.
But right now it's on a lot by lot basis. Takes a long time to get those approvals, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so when it comes to duplexes, duplexes are two connected dwelling units. They have separate utilities as opposed to the accessory apartment. They bring a lot of benefits as well. They, can help increase the supply of housing, efficient use of land, utilize the existing infrastructure that the city already has built out. I know everyone has seen some fairly unattractive duplexes, but it is possible to make good looking duplexes. Here's some examples. The bottom left one is, a unit where one unit is above the other unit. So I guess this is saying that kind of the lot sizes that's required for duplexes. So similar to the zone change request we had tonight, we would be requiring special design elements to be met, to be approved. So again, there's the normal procedure where someone would apply to change the zoning on a property, let's say from single family to duplex. For example, the case tonight. That case is probably going to take 60 to 90 days to be completed because the developer had to come in, apply for the zone change, a big staff report gets written, it comes to DAB, it goes to Planning Commission, it goes to City Council. It takes a long time for that to happen. This is going to be a much quicker process, but we're asking that they meet certain elements for that quicker process to happen. So the garages cannot be extended more than the front wall of the house. Garages no more than 50% of the ground level facade. Corner duplexes on corner lots have to have entrances that face opposite streets. Front doors are prominent features of the home. The goal here is to make a duplex in a single family residential neighborhood look like it fits in with everything else.
Matt?
Yes.
Hi, sorry, Russell Fox here. Would it be possible to go back to the earlier duplex slide real quick? How did you, you just went past the one I was looking at. It was a lot size. I'm just curious, how did you come up with those minimums?
I believe, and I'm sorry, I believe that those are the requirements right now.
Oh, are they?
So to have a duplex, you have to have a 5,000 square foot lot and at minimum, or a minimum of 2,500 square feet per duplex unit. So I will look into that, but I believe that's what it is right now.
I think you're correct.
It just occurs to me, I guess it also kind of depends on, your definition of terms, but I can think of duplexes that function on smaller minimums or smaller spaces than what you're listed here. So
I'm just pulling it up real quick.
Smaller square footage of the duplex, but not the lot size. Because the lot size would be bigger, right? So you're not confusing the two, are you, Russell?
No, I may have misspoke. I mean duplexes that exist on lot sizes that I think are probably smaller than those minimums. But I may be also thinking about units that were grandfathered in and were built at an earlier time or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just pulled up the zoning code real quick. It looks like the current standard is 3,000 square feet per dwelling unit for a duplex.
Oh, really?
So that would be 3,000.
This would actually be a move to allow it on smaller lot sizes.
Yeah, so it looks like this is allowing it on smaller lots than current.
Okay.
Good question, then.
Thank you.
Yeah, glad I could pull that up real quick. Okay, so like accessory dwelling units, allowing more duplexes in single family zoning is something that other communities are looking into. Our next topic is compact lots. So these, most, I believe, single family homes, the minimum square foot lot is 5,000 square feet. There are a lot of lots in the central part of the city that are smaller than 5,000 square feet, homes that were built on that lot a long time ago, or just random parcels that at this point in time cannot be developed because they don't meet the minimum square footage. Obviously having these vacant pieces of land out there isn't great, and being able to build homes on them would be important. So we are recommending that minimum size be 3,000 square feet as long as you fit certain design standards. One off-street parking space is required only if it's adjacent to on-street parking, only if on-street parking next to it is not available. So this is just showing that you can build, smaller houses, not tiny houses, but smaller houses that could fit on those smaller size lots. And here are the design requirements for that. Garage is not extending more than the front wall. Garage no more than 50% of the ground level, kind of similar to the other ones. And this is being looked into by other cities as well. And then the final zoning topic is townhouses or multi-unit buildings, similar to, I think this one is over here in College Hill, that's photo on the bottom right. These kind of small apartment type units are kind of hard to build in certain areas, but offering this different type of housing option for people would be important. Not everybody wants to live in single family homes. And we're just recommending some design requirements on these as well, and having a maximum density of 4 units per a standard parcel, and a max height of 35 feet, trying to make these fit in the neighborhoods that they're going to be developed in. And again, similar design requirements as the past few options. So this is I kind of mentioned it earlier, how the zoning process currently works. We send out public notice. It goes to the district advisory board, the planning commission, then the city council. And then ultimately, if it's approved, then the ordinance gets published. So we're looking at 2 different alternatives for this new set of requirements. And the goal is, we want these developments to happen because we think these developments are important in our community. And we're trying to figure out how can we make them happen easier than they're currently happening. So alternative 1 is by right, and alternative 2 is administrative approval. So by right would be when someone comes in to get their permits, if it's in the established central area, and let's say it's a single family zoned property and they're trying to build a duplex, we would check and make sure that they've met the design requirements that are required for that area. If they do meet the design requirements, they can go ahead and construct their duplex. If they don't meet the design requirements, then they have to apply for a zone change just like they normally would. In the case of the accessory apartment, they would have to apply for conditional use. So, this streamlines the process. It encourages investment. It gives developers the knowledge that, okay, here's what the rules are. If I meet those rules, I can build it. And that's really important for a developer when time is money. And, if they have to spend 3 months hopefully applying for a zone change that they don't end up getting, that really can throw off the risk reward benefit of building a property. So the second idea is an administrative permit. So instead of doing by right, we would send out a public notice, and it would be a smaller public notice than normal zone changes. If they met the design requirements and they did not meet a substantial protest after that public notice, then they could proceed to construction. If enough people around them protested based on that public notice, then they would have to go for a zone change like normal. And so here's what that public notice would be. They would have to send we would send a letter, and they would post a sign, and the letter would be sent to all of the abutting properties. So the properties across the street from them, behind them, next to them. We would give them a 10-day notice period for the sign. And if 75% of those properties protested, let us know that they were against it, then they would have to go through the normal process. If they didn't hit 75% of those properties protesting it, then it could be approved. So this is faster than our current process, but it's slower than the by right option. There's more potential for variability than the by right. So you could understand how a developer, if it still has to be okayed by the neighbors, then that doesn't give them quite the ability to know that it's going to work out. But it does give the neighbors more of an idea what's happening in there and gives them a little bit more voice. So that's the zoning options. I know that's really complicated. I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk about that right now before we move on to land bank.
Yeah, why don't we stop here real quick, Matt, and see if anybody has any questions on this while it's still fresh. I really want to know what the group thinks about the two different tactics, the by right or the administrative permit. Certainly we have a small portion of District 5 that falls within that established central area. Most of District 5 was all developed after the 60s. So most of our lot sizes are big and wide, and we don't have a lot of that, but we do have a few. And obviously we had one tonight that would fit into this. So I'm curious as to what the group thinks about the two proposals and which do you think residents would prefer? Does anyone have any thoughts?
So is this an either or scenario, or where
The
you
two
would have?
proposals right now, yeah.
Okay, all right.
The
So
by
it's
right
not-
or the administrative permit.
Let's see.
I would think
So again,
residents
the
would-
by right has no notification.
Yeah,
Just as long as they meet all the criteria, they could proceed. Whereas the administrative permit, there's that 75% threshold, which is higher than our normal. Right now, it's when we get into what's it trigger it at?
Yeah, usually 20%.
20%. Thank you. I was going to say 50, but I knew. So I mean that's quite a difference, 20% to 75. So 20% makes it automatically have to be heard by council. So with this, if they fall in that 60%, it just bypasses us all and goes straight on. So
I'll tell you this, Brian, when he was going through the requirements of the bygone option or whatever that first option was, and I knew we just had to meet those design requirements, I almost immediately wanted to text one of my developers and builder friends and was like, listen to what they're talking about right now. It does encourage investment. And I think I like the requirements. I like knowing I have to achieve like these goals in order to build a duplex or whatever in this neighborhood. And I think what it's intended to do is create more opportunity for investment. And I think it'll do just that. I'm excited about that.
I mean, again, that's the whole idea behind this. We have so much inventory in this
Yes.
urban infill that
No, we
is-
don't have enough inventory. That's
well,
the
and so
problem.
these vacant lots, they become eyesores, they become challenges. We end up having to mow them and take care of them, and they don't generate the property tax revenue that we really need to counter the investment that we put in with all the infrastructure. And if we can get groups to start rebuilding some of this core and utilizing these vacant lots, it helps with transportation issues, it helps with mobility, helps with economic development. But again, it's a very cumbersome process. A lot of these lots are very small, very narrow, like we said. And I think the idea here is to try to create something that still fits the neighborhood character by putting all the design requirements in so that it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, right? And it still fits, but making use of those lots and in a way that allows a developer or even an individual that wants to create some rental income, right? A way to do something a little quicker. Time is money, obviously. And but again, as we know with established neighborhoods, residents are used to the way things are, or the way things are. And, then they start coming in and they can just automatically do this stuff. Then it creates a lot of angst and pushback. And so we're just trying to figure out what's the balancing point here. Where does it need to be? So
Brian, I would tend to go with option 2.
With
We
the
still have
75%.
we still have notification, but it takes quite a bit to stop it. I think it still gives them developers the incentive to
Mhm.
do it. It is still quicker, but it gives the neighbors some idea of what's going to go on. Doesn't blindside them.
Right.
Russell,
For what it's worth, Brian, I would be more of a on the side of the buy right approach. I think the key was something that you just mentioned. I mean, not just developers, but individuals themselves, families that want to, put on an additional apartment or, expand existing rooms for children that move home, for elderly parents. I mean, these are people who own the properties, and overwhelmingly, for the sake of the value of their property, they're going to want to conform with all of the expectations anyway. I think that, everything that we can do to really expedite those kind of what I think should be no-brainer type additions ought to be contemplated. So I have to leave, but Matt, I really appreciate this presentation. I've heard some of this before already, but I'm sorry I can't stay for all of this. You guys are doing some really important work that's going to be very helpful to the city. I mean, either one of these options are over the status quo.
Yeah.
And I think that preferring by right, it's probably just a reflection of, the sort of people that I want to see most directly aided by these changes. But either one of these changes are going to aid people.
yeah.
So really,
Alan, do you have a comment?
Yeah. First of all, I want to just say I'm very much in favor of the overall plan. Don't want to lose that in the discussion of one or two. I think the important thing is to adopt the plan. I think kind of the same thing that Russell was saying earlier. I think it's important that we do it. I think it will improve our neighborhoods, and I also think it is, for all the reasons that you cited, important for the economics of the city to be able to improve the service of the infrastructure and that sort of thing. I think that's critical. I think we're going to have, as you're well aware, Brian and Russell, I'm a believer in the strong towns concepts, and I think we're going to have some issues to deal with going in the future with the urban sprawl and so forth. So I think we need to do this. Now, as to the by right or administratively, I think that there's enough restrictions on what you can do that it makes sense to make it by right. It's a fairly constrained, fairly narrow type of thing that you can do. And it has to be consistent with the house, has to be consistent with the neighborhood, it's of limited size, and so forth. I think all of those point to making it available by right. Also, I think it's a little bit ironic, I guess it is, that especially in the culture or the politics, that the push for the administrative approval or not doing the plan at all is sort of, well, I don't want to ruin the neighborhood. And I would think that there would be more emphasis on a homeowner being allowed to do what they want with their own property, kind of thing. It seems like the roles are kind of reversed here of what I would normally expect.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying, and I think we've all, anyone that's served on this board or heard a zoning case before, have heard from individuals, neighbors that, well, I didn't know that was zoning that was next door to me. I didn't realize that could have happened. And so I guess I'm a little oversensitive to the notification and people making sure they are aware. Most of my district, most of District 5 is planned development with covenants and restrictions, and or don't really fall into this category. And you can't do some of these things because the way they were designed and the rules that are in place from it. So much of this is been around for such a long time, and people are used to it the way it is. And then all of a sudden they start seeing change without being notified. They're going to yell at us, and they're going to say, how can this be? How come we didn't know about it? And again, I think all the rules that we're trying to put in place with the design and the lot requirements and so forth, we can preach it and say it and advertise it till the cows come home. There's still going to be people that say, I didn't know. And so having that notification, I think, is still an important part of the process.
Matt, but just
whether it's 75 or 50, or I don't know, but
yeah, right. Actually, that raises a question, Matt. I don't know whether there might be a middle ground. Would it be possible to have it when we say by right, it's actually not quite by right. There is still you can't just go build something. You still have to go through an administrative process and get the design approved or
they have to show that they met the requirement. Yeah,
that they met the
they don't have to apply for anything special, just show the plans and
but they still have to go through that process.
Correct.
Is there a middle ground perhaps where there would be a way where they have to give notice when they submit those plans, so at least the neighbors have an awareness that it's going on and can contact the MAPC and say, hey, we don't think it meets we disagree that it meets the design requirements, or something like that?
I understand what you mean. Hopefully the design requirements are written in a way that it's very, black and white. Does it meet these or not?
Yeah.
So that there shouldn't be an argument in between. And, I guess our feelings would be if we notify the neighbors around them and, send out notices, then we need to give them a way to speak out and do something about it, as opposed to just letting them know and saying, sorry, they met the requirements, they're doing it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I think that's where option 2 is good, because it shortens that time frame, still gives them the option to know what's going on. And, the developer's got to feel pretty good that it takes 75% of the people to stop something.
Yeah.
That's very highly unlikely going to happen.
Yeah. So just to answer the question you actually asked is, I would be in favor of option 1, but I think it's more important that it be passed in some form. So if it takes option 2 to do it, fine, do it.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts before we move on to the land bank?
I would just ask from a process perspective, right? So these are zoning proposals, right? Ultimately, they'll have to be voted on, and just, I always get a little bit confused when we're talking, because the community investments plan and the MABCD and MAPC are hybrid forms of government. So would this require approval from both bodies?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And what's the proposed timeline or notional schedule for these zoning proposals to go in front of the council?
I believe pretty quick. That's my last slide. I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. We can get there.
You referenced it earlier. I thought you said May, but it could be wrong.
Spring 2021 is when we hope to have this wrapped up.
Okay. So within
in the
about
next
2
couple
months.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and move on now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rachel popped up. Did you have a question?
I did, but Matt, is this something, this slide, something that you can email to us?
Yeah, these are actually on our website. It's a really big file, so it'd be easier for you to grab it off of there.
Yeah, it's going to be too big to email.
The wichita.gov/places for people.
Okay.
And Rachel, it's also on our DAB 5 website, posted there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Matt.
Okay. But yeah, I think this is really good. You know, it's a win-win that people can start developing in the inner part of the city. And, you know, if someone applies for a duplex zone change right now, they almost always get approved. And this is going to make the end product better than what's getting built right now. So. Okay, so the next part of the presentation is the land bank proposal. So along with, you know, trying to redevelop the core of the city, there's obviously a lot of vacant property there. There's vacant property that is owned by somebody that doesn't really know they own it, or that doesn't want to sell it, or, you know, it's just kind of tied up for some reason. Everybody can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So the land bank would create a government entity focused on the conversion of that land to a productive use, focusing on the vacant, abandoned, and tax delinquent property. You know, in the core of the city, there's lots of properties that look like on the left there. You know, these properties, they might have an old house that used to be built there and the basement is just filled in. There's big trees that have to be removed. These lots are very expensive to develop on because there's a lot of unseen costs there, and you might not know the costs until you try to develop on there. We've done research on land banks in 9 other communities. We've looked at how they run their organization, how much money they take, how many people they use to help run their organizations. We've looked at how they are run by boards. Most of them are run by boards that are appointed by elected officials. Some of them actually take over the property, build on it, and then rent those properties out. Some of them partner with other groups to help do that. But you know, they all have different focuses. Some focus on revitalization of certain neighborhoods, or just affordable housing, or getting people into home ownership. All of them require subsidies to operate. Land banks provide the ability to abate special assessments and back taxes that a private developer wouldn't be able to do. They can manage and maintain properties. They can sort through ownership and title issues, which are a big problem on some of these properties. And they can obviously focus attention more so than maybe a small developer might be able to. So on our website, we have a draft mission statement, ordinance and bylaws and policies. Also frequently asked questions for this proposal. Our law department and a special team of people in the city have been working on this for a long time, trying to figure out how this should be run, who should be on the board, and kind of what the focus should be. The mission statement they came up with is the Wichita Land Bank will promote the revitalization of neighborhoods consistent with the Wichita Places for People plan through management and transfer of properties that are deemed underutilized. So the draft ordinance establishes the land bank and a board of trustees, and that would be 7 members. It allows an advisory to help guide the board, and it is on the established central area, but it also will allow property from other underutilized or distressed areas. They didn't want, you know, in case somebody wanted to donate a piece of property outside of the established central area, they didn't want to turn them away. Any purchase, sale, or transfer. Let me turn my camera off before I lose you. Okay, sorry about that. Any purchase, sale, or transfer of property must be approved by the city council. So everything has to be approved by the council. The land bank board is just an advisory to the city council. And an important note, this is not eminent domain. State law does not provide for the use of eminent domain by a land bank. So this would be kind of how the process would work. An applicant would offer to purchase the property from the Land Bank Board of Trustees, but that purchase would have to be approved by the City Council. The priorities for this would be affordable housing and neighborhood revitalization. It doesn't just have to be for residential space. It could be also retail, commercial, or open space. We're hoping for a quick property transition. We don't want to just sit on a bunch of properties. Some land banks do that, where they just take every single property that didn't get purchased at a,
Tax sale, yeah.
yeah, tax sale. Thank you. There's one up in KCK. I mean, they have thousands of properties in their inventory. That's not the goal of this land bank. And again, every purchase, sale, or transfer of property must be approved individually by the Wichita City Council. So on our website, we've got a frequently asked questions section that really talks about this really in depth if you're interested in this more. And I'd recommend you take a look at that. Are there any questions on this specifically?
Hey man, this is Dennis again. So, I mean, I know you glossed over it really quickly, and I'm sure by design, given what the scope of today's presentation is. But obviously you mentioned the land bank does require subsidies, which is more often than not the most contentious part of any, sort of proposed new government program. Do we have any idea, what the amount or the budget required initially to get the land bank off the ground, or what that sort of tax would look like, tax collections, I guess?
I believe they have started looking into that. I'm pulling that up right now. Hopefully, I was hoping Mary could have a little bit more information on this topic, but let me pull that up and see if I can find something on our website real quick. If there's any other questions, I could try to answer those in the meantime. I guess, so one thing that we've talked about is, obviously it's not going to pay for itself, and it's going to, we're still trying to determine how many employees this is going to take. Is it going to be an employee that's at the city that maybe is in the property department and they're going to, run this on the side, or is it going to take a full-time employee that does this? I'm not sure that a budget has been hashed out for that, but that would be something that would need to be looked at going forward. First, how's it going to be run, or is it going to be a new employee entirely, or just, maybe a couple employees? But here on the land bank FAQ, it talks about the land bank will acquire property that is currently producing no property tax revenue and returning it to the tax rolls by cleaning up title issues, identifying a new property owner who will redevelop the property. So the goal is that at some point, by selling these properties, a little bit of money will come in that would help maybe buy more properties. The goal being maybe you buy a property that's next to one of the other properties you already have that makes it more interesting for the developer. I think that a lot of these things are going to need to be ironed out by the advisory board and the first board of the land bank to try to figure out how they're going to be doing this and what properties they're going to go after.
Matt, I would think that if you got a property back on the tax rolls, for a period of years, it'd more than pay for itself.
Yeah, that's the goal, I think, also with,
Yeah.
The other things that you have with abandoned or neglected properties with tall weeds and criminal activity. There's savings related to that could help offset the cost of it. So, all that thing still has to be penciled out. So.
Yeah.
Brian, theoretically, the city will basically serve as sort of a pass-through entity, right? You'll have purchased land, and then you'll be able to sort of abate.
Yeah, and it'd be a lot quicker process than we have right now.
Right. So there's an incentive for the developer to buy from the city
Yeah, like right now, when we do remnant parcels, we have to publicly notice it. You know, we have to have it at a council meeting. We have to hear it. We just had a couple of parcels a couple of weeks ago on McLean that were leftover remnants that we had to advertise, go through a whole process, and then put it out for sale. This would streamline that and hopefully get it on the market quicker. And it still has to go to the council for approval, but streamline that process.
Matt, you talked about not sitting on inventory like, you know, our counterparts to the north. Do we have any sort of notional estimate of like the amount of properties we might see off the get-go, or, you know?
I don't believe we do at this point. What I've heard is that, you know, the goal might be we acquire a property that we know has title issues or other issues, back taxes, things like that, in order to flip it for someone. So kind of having an idea of who the property owner might be when we acquire it.
Okay.
That way we're not sitting on property for a long time.
So there's almost basically a business deal, if you will, or a plan at least for said property before it's acquired.
That's right. Okay. And hey, I see Mary popped on. Mary, can you hear me?
You're muted, Mary.
There I
Hey.
am.
Hello.
Hey.
We just wrapped up the presentation, but if you
Oh
could help
my
me
gosh,
answer.
really?
Lucky you.
I know you had a marathon one, I think.
Yeah, I did. I was over in DAB 1.
Do we have any idea of what the budget might be for the land bank, or how long we would hold on to properties before we get rid of
No,
them?
budget has not been discussed, but we do know that the land bank will require a subsidy. We do know that. It's not a money-making operation because some of the goals are not necessarily to make money, but there might be some land there that might be good for, you know, a community garden or something to do with parks or things like that. And those are not things that generate revenue. They're going to cost. But if a community needs that and wants that, that might be a good use for a particular parcel of land. Did you hear me?
Yes, thank you for
Oh,
that.
good. I can't see.
Okay. Any other questions for Matt
What
or
other
Mary?
kind of questions did you have?
I have a question. Is there any conversations going on with like Habitat for Humanity rather than us taking on, you know, the city taking on something like this? The city still has to be involved, but clearing the path or, you know, virtually almost giving away the land to like Habitat for Humanity or one of those.
Well,
Jacob's Ladder.
That may very well happen because we want to be in partnership with both our nonprofit organizations like Mennonite and Habitat and others. But because affordable housing is a very high priority of the land bank, okay, and of places for people in general. So yes, but it also involves having the for-profit community involved as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You have to have it for you can't give everything away, but I'm saying from a staffing standpoint, you know, you talk about not having a budget. If we work,
not yet.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
All right.
I just want to make sure we were touching those charitable organizations that, you know, don't always have the money to buy the land, but could get the money to build the house. You know, Jacob's Ladder. I was fortunate enough to get to sit on the grant review board. And so I saw a lot of great opportunities for charitable organizations like that. So Thank you.
Well, I also want to point out that the land bank does not desire to be in the development business. You know, we have nonprofit developers, we have for-profit developers in our community, and they know what they're doing. The land bank wants to acquire property strategically, generally having a very good idea what it wants to do with it as it acquires it, but that it doesn't want to hold on to it for years. It wants to have an idea what it's going to be used for and then out she goes. They do what they have to do. They clean up title. They, they take care of everything to clean it up, to make it so it's marketable, and then market it. They don't want to be in the development or rehab business.
I love it. I like it.
I'm curious to know if the city already has some vacant properties or properties with homes that are not necessarily maintained. And I'm thinking back to a meeting that I was a part of several years ago, where I think I saw that the city already owns some properties that are vacant and properties that have homes that are, in theory, low income housing or something that we try to rent out, et cetera, that's a challenge for us to maintain. Is that accurate?
I'm not familiar with how they maintain it. Our community and housing department does own affordable housing units. And through the Economic Development Office, there have been times where they have acquired property for an economic development purpose, and there's now some leftover parcels. And the land bank isn't particularly going after that, because if economic development people haven't been able to market it, why would the land bank? So I don't think that's what they're looking at. They really are looking at neighborhood revitalization.
Mary, I would imagine that there are some properties where the back taxes are higher than any value of the property.
Absolutely.
And that's where you can clean it up, right?
That's exactly right. And what can happen is, here's the example I give. Someone lives in a home for a very, very long time. They grow old. Eventually they die, and some nephew in some state far away finds out that he is the proud owner of a dilapidated house in Wichita, Kansas. He now finds out that there are back taxes. This is not good news for that person. Okay. And so that's a great opportunity for the land bank to use the law that Kansas affords, because that person did not ask for that property.
Yeah, that nephew, would cost him more money to get out of it.
Yes.
So he's just better off just leaving it there.
Yes. And that's
Let
why
the
there will
taxes
be a
accumulate.
donation process, not just a selling process, but a donation process.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good program for those houses, definitely.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mary or Matt? We do need to vote on it to receive and file it, I think, right, Brian?
I believe so. Was there a slide that said next steps? I don't know if you were.
Yeah, let me pull that back
Figure
up
out
real
more,
quick.
okay.
Yeah, we are not requiring a vote tonight.
Yeah, I think we want to get feedback, questions.
Yes.
Comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, so as I mentioned at the beginning, the next steps are, this would hopefully go to the Planning Commission in the spring, and then on to City Council and County Commission. And then again, you can go to wichita.gov/places-for-people, and you could submit comments there. You can give your email address to get more information about later events. And you can also schedule a presentation if you have a small meeting, neighborhood association or something like that, where you would like to learn more about this. And that's all we have.
Yeah. We have several groups lined up right now to get this presentation, but we would certainly welcome more.
Yeah, they've done a great job of getting this out over the years, from the beginning when this was the community investment plan. And as Matt explained, all the steps that we've gone along. But again, you can never tell people enough about this, about the intent and clear up misconceptions. There's a lot of people that continue to think that this is going to be a tool for eminent domain, and the city's just going to come in and acquire property right and left. And that's not the goal. That's not what we want. That's not what we're allowed to do either. But that's the thing I keep hearing the most. And again, I said this earlier tonight, it's about taking better care of the infrastructure that we have, putting it to more productive use, generating tax revenue to help pay for everything. And again, making it more economically viable in the core, and creating more walkable areas, density that's better utilized than it is right now. So
Yeah.
it's a really long process, I know, but it's very important work. That if we're going to continue to attract and retain people, this is the kind of development that younger generation is wanting, in that flexible, that smaller environment where there's less of a footprint, more walkable spaces, etc. And this is a way to hopefully do it in a quicker way as well. We tend to plan stuff to death in Wichita. We tend to take a long time to get to a point, but this has been really good work.
Yeah. Okay, well, good. Thank you, Brian. I think said recommended action to receive and file. Can we just have a motion to receive and file it?
Yeah, so moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Rachel, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, passes. Thank you.
Thank
Our
you.
next
Just
meeting,
one more comment. Feel
Sure.
free to, as you kind of mull this over, days and such, feel free to go on our website and pluck in there a question or a comment or something that you hadn't thought of tonight.
Yeah.
okay.
There is one
Yeah.
more piece to this still to come, and that was the financing piece.
That's
Will
right.
that come back to the DEBs
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
With that, we're going to thank Troy for his service, and he'll have to come to our April meeting to get his grand prize.
Can't wait.
There you go. So a reminder, our next meeting is Monday, April the 5th. And Brian said, hopefully we'll be in person then. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, that's the plan right now. So I think they're still doing some recon on the AV capabilities for those folks that still want to participate virtually. Certainly our setup's a little bit better than others, but they want to make sure that it's consistent all the way around. And again, we'll still be social distancing and wearing masks while we're in the meeting, but at least maybe a return to face-to-face. So.
Okay. Can I wear my sweatpants with my dress shirt?
You're wearing pants?
Not going to comment on that. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and
Yep, appreciate it all. Thanks for the long night.
thank you.
And again, thanks for everybody that came on the tour last week. I think that was a lot of fun, and I appreciate the zoo showing that for us. So
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay.
thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.